Hey guys, I'm Kevin, and I'm going to be going over the character creation stuff in Biomutant and help give you guidance on what you need to know before you make a character. The first big decision that you're going to have to make comes in the form of choosing what breed you would like to play as. There are 6 breeds in total at release that you can choose from. These are the Primal, the Dum-Don, Rex, Hyla, the Fip, and also the Murgle. Each of these breeds have their own different stats, but really, the main thing your breed will affect is the overall base look of your character. However, if you're really into min-maxing your character and just trying to get the most optimal build, then you're really going to want to pay attention to what these different breeds can do. That said, this only really affects the base stats of your character. Everything else can be increased with your mutation points that you get as you level up playing the game. Okay, so starting with the Primal, this breed is most likely already familiar to you, as it's the breed that's been used in all of the game's promotional materials so far. The Primal doesn't really play to one class or another so much, as it's meant to be a fast and agile class with a lower intellect and average amount of health and strength. The Primal is tied for having the highest critical chance at 4%. Primal would be a great starting breed for melee and ranged damage hybrid characters. If you just want to play and not really play to a specific attack style, Primal would be a good choice for you. Our next breed is the Dum-Don, which as you can tell is a little dumb. With the Dum-Don, you can expect high melee damage, and in fact, it has the best melee damage of the 6 breeds, but despite these heavy hits, it's a little bit slow. With the lowest energy regeneration out of the other 5 breeds, this makes the dummy a little bit slow, and their average health doesn't really make them the most durable either. Dum-Don would be a great breed for getting up close and wailing on somebody with your sword doing a ton of damage. If you want something very melee focused, Dum-Don would be a great breed to pick. The Rex is a bit of a jack of all trades. They're a great hybrid pick for people that want to both use mental attacks but also deal physical damage. Rexes have a higher base health than the other breeds, and they have more ki energy as well as power than the other breeds. They make up for this though by having only an average amount of melee damage compared to something like the Dum-Don or the Primal. Otherwise, without any other downsides, if you want to just do anything, this would probably be the breed that you want to pick. For those of you looking for a tankier breed with lots of health and armor, you will definitely want to pick the Hyla. While they have the lowest critical chance out of all of the other breeds, they are extremely tough and resilient. If you like to sit back and sling magic at your enemies from a distance, much like a mage in World of Warcraft, Fip is definitely your guy. They have the highest intellect stats out of any of the other breeds. This is a perfect pick for the Psi-Freak class. However, they are a bit of a glass cannon with their low health and armor stats. Now, the Murgle is a bit of an odd breed. They're described as being a breed where their evolutionary lineage has gone in a direction where form and appearance has dominated over function. Basically, that means that they're pretty. They have the best charisma stats out of the other classes with a 10% barter level over the standard of 7. And they're also tied for the highest luck stats with Primal by having the best loot chances at a whole whopping 5%. They have a bit more intellect than the Primal, but aside from that, they're pretty average in comparison to the other breeds. This game is very much about loot, so the loot chance, all memes aside, does actually help out a bunch, and the barter level will give you an edge in trading. This could be the best breed for the non-combat side of the game. You may be wondering what exactly these different stats do. Vitality affects how much health you have and the energy cost of dodging. Your health increases as you level up and regenerates slowly outside of combat, but can also be filled in combat with consumable items. The amount of armor you have also defines how much damage you can take from enemy attacks. Your armor increases with the gear that you equip. The strength attribute affects your melee damage, so the higher your strength, the more melee damage you do. Your intellect stat determines how much ki energy you have and how fast it regenerates, as well as how much damage your psi powers and mutations do. It also defines the amount of moves you can perform while trying to complete puzzles. Much like health, ki energy regenerates and can also be replenished with consumable items. Agility is pretty simple, it just affects your overall movement speed so that it's easier to dodge attacks and such. Charisma will change how easy it is to persuade other characters and how high your barter stat is. The higher your barter stat, the more money or green you get from selling items. It also reduces the prices for items that you're trying to purchase. Your luck attribute gives you a higher critical chance, and it also gives you a better chance at getting loot. When you attack and it crits, you will deal more damage, so a high crit chance is actually very good. As for loot chance, the higher it is, the more chance you have to find both higher quality items and items of a higher rarity. Next, you get to mutate your character. This is an important step that allows you to skew your stats to better fit your playstyle. What's cool about this is that it also changes how your character looks. As you gain more strength, your chest gets broader and kind of look more built, but I guess we skipped leg day, so I don't know, oh well. This allows you to do more damage when using melee weapons. The more agility you have, the lankier and taller you get. This allows you to move much faster than normal. Intellect gives you a gigantic noggin and makes you much smaller, but it gives you crazy ability for psi powers. Charisma makes you look a bit more, I guess, normal, with pretty even physical features. Again, this only really affects your barter ability and not too much else. Vitality is all about health, so you end up looking like, you basically look like a nugget. I mean, you get big everywhere. A big ol' chonky boy. This allows you to pretty drastically change your starting stats depending on how far you go with each stat. With a base of 28 points in each attributes and 10 being the lowest you can make any given area, you get a total of 90 stat points that you can allocate through this. So if you want, you can make any individual stat 100. Say you want to really channel your inner Emperor Palpatine and use just a lot of electrical psi attacks. You can do that. You just take your intellect up to 100 and it'll give you quite a bit of power and regeneration. One thing to note though is that you can't directly change exactly how many points you can have in each attribute. So if you wanted to have a lot of intellect and strength, you can't actually just do that because they're opposite sides of the circle. However, you can split it evenly between two stats that are next to each other for about 55 points in each one. This way you can have, say, a nice tanky boy with lots of vitality and melee strength without much in terms of charisma, speed, or psi ability. Knowing what class you'd want to be will help a lot during this part. Your genetic resistances is also pretty important for when it comes to navigating the world of Biomutant. You will get to different areas or zones that have different levels of biohazard or radioactivity and such that will not only deal damage to you, but it'll also cause other effects as well. This you can pretty much do whatever you want with, but honestly I recommend leaving it somewhere around the middle and then just boosting it through your levels where you find that you need it. The next three sections allow you to customize the fur of your character as well as the primary and secondary colorations on the fur. Don't worry about this affecting any of your stats or anything like that, as it's entirely aesthetics only. Lastly, we have our classes. This is the moment that we've been waiting for. There are 5 basic classes that you can choose from. These are the Mercenary, the Deadeye, the Commando, the Psi-Freak, the Saboteur, and the Sentinel. Note that the Mercenary is actually only available as a DLC or as a bonus for pre-ordering the game. Now, this is the most important part of the character creation process, as the playstyle that you wish to have determines what class that you should pick at this point. While a breed can be anything and nothing's really locked out by picking one over the other, that is not the case for classes. All classes have access to the same perks under the general perks tree. However, all classes have some abilities that are not available to others in the class-specific ability perks page. So, starting with the Mercenary, this is probably the best class for you if you're looking for something very melee-oriented. You start with the Twin Silver Grip perk, which allows you to dual-wield 2 different one-handed weapons from the beginning of the game, and the Fury perk, which makes your melee attacks deal 10% more damage to your target. With the Mercenary, you have access to Fury, which again does 10% more damage with your melee attacks, Megamind, where key energy regen is increased by 20%, Reflexes, where weapon-based ranged attacks from enemies have a 10% chance to miss us completely, Invincibility, where your armor and damage from melee attacks is increased by 20% when you're at full health, and lastly, Brutality, where critical damage from melee attacks is increased by 10%. Next is our Deadeye. If you want to go for a ranged class, this will be one of the best ones for you. It gives you immediate access to the perfect reload perk. This makes it so that your ranged weapons are reloaded instantly, and your next magazine is guaranteed 20% extra damage. With the Deadeye perks, you are given Crackshot, where non-automatic rifles inflict 20% more attack damage. Quick Load allows the reload time of ranged weapons to be reduced by 25%. Sniper is where your non-automatic rifles have a 10% critical chance bonus. Gunslinger is where dual-wielded guns have a 20% increased rate of fire. And lastly, Sharpshooter allows two-handed guns to inflict double damage. The Commando is very similar to Deadeye, but more damage focused, with a standard flat 10% increased damage compared to the Deadeye with the 20% extra damage, but only after reloading. While they don't look like much from here, you can see where they stand out in our next part when looking at the other perks they get. The Commando is excelling in survivability compared to the more vulnerable Deadeye class. With the Commando class, our perks include Fury, which gives us ranged weapon attacks inflict 10% more damage to the target. Stimulus is where our armor and damage from melee attacks is increased by 20% when our health drops below 20%. Adrenaline is where our attack speed with melee weapons is increased by 10% when our health drops below 20%. Shock allows our shotgun hits to have a 5% chance to stun a small enemy per hit inflicted. Lastly, Brutality is where our critical damage from ranged attacks are increased by 10%. For those wanting to fly around and electrocute everything, the Psi-Freak is exactly what you're looking for. You get the Spark Ball ability that throws a ball of electricity in the direction you are aiming and damaging anything you hit. The Megamind perk also increases your key energy regeneration by 20%. For you magic-focused users, this is your class. With the Psi-Freak, you have access to Megamind, where your key energy regen is increased by 20%. You have Nocturnal, which gives you plus 10 intellect attribute at night. Mind Melds, where power damage ability attacks have a 10% chance to inflict a critical hit. Psi Spikes, where your power damage attacks inflict 10% more damage to the target. And lastly, Brain Drain, where attacks that inflict power damage regenerate your health by 20%. Then we have the Saboteur, who is somewhat like a rogue. You have the Twin Silver Grip ability, which allows you to equip two different one-handed melee weapons, just like the Mercenary, but you were given the Hypergenetic perk instead, which gives you 20% reduced energy cost for dodging, which lets you weave in and out of combat much easier. With the Saboteur, we have Hypergenetic, where our dodge energy cost is reduced by 20%. Reflexes, where our weapon-based ranged attacks from enemies have a 10% chance to completely miss us. With the Agile perk, we get a increased dodge distance of 20%, allowing us to dodge even further out of danger. Moving Target means that our basic movement speed is increased by 5% while in combat. Evasive will allow our armor to be increased by 20% while dodging and or in the air. Lastly is the Sentinel, which honestly is just the tanky class. You gain 10 more base armor to withstand just that extra bit of damage that the other classes just simply would not be able to do. With the Sentinel, you have access to Toughness, where your base armor is increased by 10. You have access to Medic, where the health regen from items and in general is increased by 10%. Next, with Ricochet, an enemy's ranged attack has a 10% chance to ricochet back and damage the attacker. There's Invincibility, where your armor and damage from melee attacks is increased by 20% when you're at full health. And then lastly, we have Knock, where dodging into a smaller enemy makes them stumble and fall. Aside from these class-specific perks, really, you can do anything else you want in Biomutant. Any class can use any weapons, including melee, ranged, and Psi abilities. Classes are meant to be more of a way to maximize a certain playthrough that you may want. You can still use dual wields, and you can still shoot lightning no matter the breed or class you choose. You can adjust your playstyle as you play through the game. Anyway, I really do hope that all of this information helped you choose your class and breed, and it gave you a good idea of what you want before you get locked into something that you may not want during your playthrough. Thanks everyone for watching. I'll see you next time.